over the break, I really reflected on board meetings and how they drive the success of the organisation. And I've got to be frank, I really came to the conclusion that the vast majority of board meetings that I have attended were really caught up in business as usual, very basic conversations about topics that could have been covered offline. When I analysed how these board meetings played out in reality, 85 to 90% of the time was covering the very bare basics, just going through accounts receivables and talking about a few small debtors, things that could have been covered offline, even prior to the board meeting through a circular motion or a checkbox, using the tools, the board meeting tools to really advance the topics of the day, so that the really important topics, which were to do with managing critical risks in the business and critical business strategy conversations, could be, really recalibrated and advanced. And, I think it's a big, big issue for a lot of boardrooms, because I think everyone's kind of doing it the way it's always been done. In a way, the tools are kind of really setting you up for failure, because they're moving it all towards a board pack. Everyone reads a board pack. Everyone then comes to the meeting and kind of discusses the board pack. Everything is kind of fundamentally wrong. And I think we've got to really start to rethink what good governance really looks like and how our meetings are actually being run. And so I'd be really interested in your comments and your observations from your own board meetings. Do some analysis. How much of the time is really being spent on the basics versus the really important things that would deliver growth and manage the key risks in the business? And how much time is really being spent on those conversations in reality, enabling you to have the proper debate, the proper conversation, the proper decision making to really advance the organisation? I think there's an opportunity here for some really, forward-thinking boards to really rethink how these meetings are being run. And I remember, listening to Jeff Bezos, who totally changed the game of how meetings are run in Amazon. And I think it's a really interesting point. He got right away from assuming anyone would read anything before they came to the meeting, and they would come to the meeting, they'd all read a discussion paper, and then they'd all discuss it at that time. And it was really encouraged to have the deep, meaningful conversations and making sure everyone had a say and a turn. And that's how they made their critical decisions. Now, they wouldn't spend that time talking about business as usual. This would be time spent on the really critical issues. And I think we almost need, for certain organisations, you might have to have a board meeting which is for the governance, the basic matters that maybe do need to be covered off in a board-like setting. Maybe it can't be voted on electronically. Maybe there needs to be some discussion about it. But I still think even in that scenario, you could take a lot of stuff offline, have it voted on before the meeting so that the meeting concentrates on the critical issues. And then maybe you need a board meeting that's just focused on the key issues around business strategy and risk management, how we take the organisation forward. Don't be afraid to go against the norm, because the vast majority of boards, I think, have it wrong. So don't be afraid to suggest a change to how you're doing your meetings, how you are operating, the number of meetings that you're having, and really think about how you get the most from your board of directors, the most from the board papers, the most from the way you're interacting with the talent around the boardroom. I think it's time for a rethink, and I'd be really interested in your thoughts, because this is going to become a real theme for me during this year, is how do we improve board meetings, how do we improve governance, and how do we disrupt the way we've been doing things for a long time, because I'm not convinced it's working properly in the vast majority of situations. So it's a real opportunity, I think, especially for the younger boards, the more nimble organisations, maybe more for the private companies, to really start to shake things up a bit, because I think there's an opportunity here to get much better results from your board of directors and your board of advisors.